Love to introduce my videos with coughs. Okay, well, um, so I want to think about crypto as a long-term asset. Um, and so what I'm looking at here is the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin since inception, right? And again, it's not super precise. I mean, you could just, and again, this is just, if you take the total return and you divide it per year, it makes 59% per year. That's better than anything I know in the stock market for that long of a period. So we kind of have two possibilities here. Um, and again, I do look for when this thing drops large amounts. Okay, so like here it dropped 80%. Okay, see that? And goes back up, and this is like 80%. Here it's only dropped like 50%, I think. So, and it may not be as volatile as it once was, right? And these downward moves. Okay. So Bitcoin's probably not a bad buy right now, assuming it's here to stay. And so the other question is it going to really compound at that rate for another 10 years, right? And if it does, then this makes this maybe one of the best things you can invest in. Then I decided to compare it with, and again, there's a way you can run these models that will kind of average different periods and figure out what your compound annual growth rate might be historically. If you just pick different periods, like to that peak, it's 70%. Okay, and again, it's probably low right now. In fact, you can see this pink line, 250 week moving average. It comes down below. Once it gets above, it goes again. Here, it's like bouncing off of it. So at least as today, we're gonna say it's 56%. So I could be more methodical. But the question is, would another crypto be better? So I decided with ETH. You can see that maybe the growth rate's actually a little bit better, 64%, right? And up to here, it's 87. I can't remember what Bitcoin was at that peak. Yeah, so you can get an extra maybe 10% out of ETH per year if it stays true. Now, I do think ETH has a better use case. Smart contracts. I think a lot of business will be driven by automation, right? I mean, that's the idea. I would have to read more about it, but the other reason this is compelling compared to Bitcoin is ETH has been in a range for 5 years. Okay, went up to this peak, and for 5 years it's been trapped. Okay, so which means when it does break, if it does break, don't know, I can't say when really, but if it does break, if and when it does break this line, this is likely to make a bigger move than Bitcoin. The other advantage is this is only like $5,000, and I've got thinking about it too because for a stock to be $5,000, that's nuts, right? Who would invest in stock with 5,000? That's like there's a few stocks in the stock market that have a $5,000 price tag, but this has never been diluted, and that may explain why. Where all these other or reverse split or whatever or split. I get those backwards, but anyways, no dilutions and that kind of stuff with crypto. I guess while we're at it, maybe we should look at one. Wait, I like XRP. This is a pipe dream for Dalius. I saw a long time ago. This IPO price right here. This could be like the stopping point. Don't know, but there we go. Um, which the other way of calculating the compound annual growth rate, I can't do it in this program. Very easily at least. All right, let's go to let's look at other ones here. Solana. Solana. Okay. Like Solana's been kind of range bound since inception. Look at this. The CAGR of Solana is um, pretty miserable. No, it's only a few years old though. Uh, you can see that. Look at that, just bouncing off the top there. Uh, so it is kind of if it turns around, I don't know. Okay, but let's say it eventually turns around, comes up here. I would draw this trend line here, and if I were like Solana that much, which I don't know, um, this versus ETH. ETH has a better track record, I feel like. And you can see actually what's interesting is see this trend line that I drew? Okay. So this is an important point in my opinion here because if it comes up here, does this and this, it could triple top, or have this huge top and crash, okay? But the other case is this is the bottom, and so now it's probably a pretty decent time to start buying some ETH. So, and if it compounds, you know, um, let's say it's slower, it's 64% per year. Name any stock that's even close to that, right? Uh, let's see. Maybe we take a middle point here, like 36% per year. Okay, that's still better than anything out there. Let me see if I can calculate it. Here's a quick little AI calculation. Bitcoin, 51% annualized. You can see this is by year here. Okay. The good years were here, you can see early on. Same with this. In fact, the last 3 or 4 years. Again, the longer it's been sideways, the bigger the move is once it gets out. So trading, you'd say, well, let's wait for it to cross that line up and then buy. Whereas buy and hold, maybe you're buying on sale. So it's very opposite. Uh, you can see. So, let me see if I can figure out. Maybe another way to do this is to say, look at the moving averages, right? This is weeks. Okay, you would never buy coming up here. When do you buy? Well, let's say you bought here as it was coming back. Okay, your CAGR. Okay, is 40% per year. And you'd have to suffer, wait a year or two for it to recover. The other place, of course, is wait until maybe uh, starts to cross all of them. 40% CAGR again. And again, it's probably a little bit low right now. Okay, let's use this. If you draw, this is a good way to do it. Maybe this is what I should be looking at. Like this. So, uh, there you go. So if you were like dollar cost averaging over time, again without like deep verification of the work, it's saying 63, 65, using that. So I just took that bottom trend line and used my CAGR. Now, I don't know if you can do math, but let's say 60%, okay? Your $1,000 in 10 years would be worth $100,000, okay? And in 20 years, assuming ETH is still around, $12 million. There's your retirement program right there. If you're 30 years old, okay, 30, 40, 50, 60, let's say you get 65, you're a billionaire with $1,000 investment, okay? Now let's say you have some money to invest. I don't have 1,000, okay? That would be a trillionaire in 35 years. Well, sounds crazy. But even in 10 years, that becomes $10 million. That's pretty nuts. So again, I'm just using these numbers here. Okay. So, anyways, that's the idea. So that's and again, I think ETH seems to be better than Solana. What other coins are there? Everything else doesn't seem interesting to me. There's the AI model one, which is kind of interesting to me, but um, I don't know. There's some questions I have about it. Everything else is. Let's do this at in fact, let's just do a reasonable amount. Okay, $10,000. Okay, in 10 years you have 1 million. In 20 years you have $100 million. Okay, for $10,000 investment. Uh, Maybe it slows down, but I could still live on 33 million. That's the joke. But I don't really ever plan to retire. Uh, like to just grow my own food and cut all my expenses anyway, so don't really want any money in retirement, but so that's the point. So between 50 and 60%, you can see the number quadruples. There's Solana again. There's always two ways to look at these, unfortunately, in stocks. One is these big moves up and big moves down, okay? And some people like that. Maybe we should calculate the CAGR from this, but it doesn't look as good as ETH. But again, all crypto's been ETH has been flat for years, so maybe this is just getting ready to do this, over time here. I have no problems just picking one. Not really clear. And then, what other coins are there? Anyways, XRP. We looked at that. Look at Sui, right? I don't know. That's not very interesting to me. Dogecoin. Wow. Chainlink seems to be holding up relatively well. Again, the right way to do is probably pick a year in each of the cryptos and then compare it. So September 27. I don't remember what Chainlink's about, but I dare. Well, that must be doing well. How could that be failing? So this one kind of looks the best to me. When you look at stocks that look like this, that's the money. Anyways, I just don't think there's enough data for XRP, and it's still uncertain about its actual use case, whereas Ethereum, I think that's a lot more solid. So again, if I took, what year was it? 2017, I don't know, 49% per year. XRP. No. What was I looking at? No, that's too new. Number 27, so 42. And ETH is 27, 23. Again, you really need to probably pick an average here. Let me try that. Okay, let's talk about one factor. Probability, okay? What's the probability that ETH will be around in 20 years, okay? What's the probability that, Sushi or Chainlink will be around 20 years? These other ones. I think to me at least, it seems that ETH has the most widely use case, and that falls into like a William O'Neill principle, right? Worldwide products, massive global market. I think this is probably a better choice. These other ones, they might fail. I think Solana's around to stay, but the chart's not really convincing. Here you have Chainlink since inception, um, maybe 60%. Remember, ETH was 69. So again, all things being equal, even without the better CAGR, I think ETH is a more solid choice. So I could put money in there and never like have to look at it again. Do one more on Solana. Oh, that's interesting. Notice how do you draw this trend line? We don't have a second touch point. It could be like this. Okay, this has to turn around. If it's up here, then maybe we do that. Is this a more fair analysis? Again, we won't know until it starts turning around. And the reality is most crypto tends to turn around together. For now, this seems pretty bearish. So, I mean, you just got like this, reverse flag going down. Bear flag, I guess. I have no idea where it'll stop. Maybe here or the IPO level even. So I'd have to revisit this one. Once it turns up, I'll recalculate the CAGR. And if it's better than ETH, I might put some on that. So I think these three are the best currencies, the Solana is just more usable than Bitcoin, I suppose. Although, interesting. So I did my trend lines on the bottom to use my own kind of approach to the CAGR. It actually came out Bitcoin, ETH the same. Interesting that ETH has a forward projection of 74% per year. And the other case that I like, again, has to do with this huge base building here. Okay. Whereas Bitcoin, USD, you don't have that. But it looks good too in the sense that it doesn't, it's just going up like this. So either one's good, but I think ETH will make more money in the short term. And that's probably enough to offset the long term. Long term, that your initial gains there for next like 3, 4, 5 years are going to be crucial to what you make at the end, at that early period. All right, that's enough.